2018, we're opening the Housing, Health, and Safety Committee meeting on scooters and bikes. We have had an influx of Lime bikes and bird scooters over the past few weeks, and there's been a lot of concerns. The police have gotten a lot of calls. I have made a point to go out and look at these. I have had complaints. They're being left on sidewalks. They're being ridden in the street or on the sidewalk. I saw a girl not follow the laws with them. She came around Ivanhoe Avenue under Hopkins. Didn't stop or anything. Just came around. Now there was a car stopped there and was going through. He didn't almost hit her or anything. He saw her come around, but she didn't even take the time to stop. I know that the city of Cincinnati is working on a plan, and what I'm hoping to do is get more information from them. You have a copy on your desk of the plan from Cincinnati as it stands right now, and this is temporary until they have more time to work with it and work with the bird administration. So that's where we are. We need to figure out what to do between now and the time we can get something finalized is what we want to do with these. Riding on sidewalks, blocking sidewalks. I have pictures of them blocking sidewalks. Does anybody else here have the app by any chance?
No.
Okay. I picked up the app. Let me see if there's any on there. There's a few on here now. And because I had gotten some calls about some on the ground. And it may show 10 of them in Norwood. But then when you ride past, there are 3 of them at one spot maybe. So there's a lot more. I did talk to someone from Bird today who is more than willing to come in, talk with us, come to council. I would like him to sit down with whoever wants to sit with the law department and us before we do anything with the council, or have him come to council. What he told me, first of all, he didn't even know they were dropped in Norwood, and they didn't realize Norwood was not part of Cincinnati. Then when he called me back, I asked him to call me back. There were actually 10 locations in Norwood they dropped them off. And with those, they dropped 3 off at a location. What they do is they will drop them off in the morning and then pick them up at night. They're more than willing to work with us, but with the complaints we've had, and I think it's something we really need to look into what we can do. Where I see, if you go on the site, where most of the problem is the Xavier area, where the kids are. If you look on where they are, there are like none past Sherman Avenue. You don't see any on here, but if you can see, that's where they're all located over Clenny. Then you add the Lime bikes, and the Lime bikes I think are a bigger hazard. They're bigger. They block the whole sidewalk, even if they put them the way they're supposed to. And I have not talked to them, so I don't know what their plans are. What Bird had told me was they are willing to pay whatever franchise fee we have, and plus $1 a day per scooter for if we have a road fund or something like that. Which, if they're going to be in Norwood, I don't want to see Cincinnati getting that money, having them put these on the outskirts of Norwood, or on the, by Cincinnati, and then they ride them in Norwood. But what we're here for, I guess, is just to decide what we want to do with these, the rules and regulations. I have a ton of information here on what other cities are doing. Other cities are going as far as banning them, putting moratoriums on them until the city decides what they want to do with them. And otherwise just having, their own rules and regulations. I did talk to Mayor Williams today, who said whatever we decide, we don't have to worry about enforcement. I was concerned with enforcement. Do we have the manpower to pick them up from Public Works? This and that. And he said, don't worry, whatever you do, he'll make sure it gets done. So,
Well, at this time, we don't have any regulations that apply that I could find in the codified ordinance regarding these motorized scooters. We have motorized bicycles, we have motorcycles, but not motorized scooters. The assisted mobility devices, those really pertain to rideable vehicles that people who have a disability use for assistance. I wouldn't say that these are, a mobility device for somebody who needs assistance. These are a convenience to get to one place to another. And I agree, I was behind one going up Ivanhoe, just kind of cruising through, and there was no regard to any other traffic there. It was right up from the curb to the middle of the street, and just, although he just almost stopped at the stop sign, and then Menor, and then just continue to go on. However, no helmet. Whether that would be a requirement or not. I mean, we have, for just regular bicycles, motorized bicycles, we have where they can be ridden, what type of right-of-way they're expected to maintain, and also as far as them being an obstruction on sidewalks. I think one of the biggest things would be, if something is left abandoned for X amount of hours just sitting on a sidewalk. If there's a grocery cart sitting on the sidewalk for 12 hours or so, I'm not sure if we still pick them up, but Public Works used to pick them up and take them down to Public Works. Granted, these are somebody's property who we know who they belong to, but we know who the carts belong to too. But unless they're being used, I would say that they are abandoned, because in fact, just same way with regular bicycles, if they're there for an extended period of time and they're in the right-of-way, they're considered abandoned, and we usually would pick those up and sell those at a police auction. Not sure, being we know who these quote belong to, do they actually belong in the right-of-way as like a footprint for their business, being they don't have a brick and mortar facility here. They're using the brick and mortar of our sidewalks and that as their store or their storefront. And I don't know that how we would regulate that or where we would go with that. But I would think that, if they're parking on the sidewalk and using that as their business storefront, it would seem that we would have some type of recourse for that. Same way if they've been left there for an extended period of time. And the same with Cincinnati. There was no authorization given to be able to even utilize the sidewalk space for leaving these, setting out. Now, if we possibly consider some of the same regulations as we would have for, include these motorized scooters in, like with the motorized bicycles, or that they have to be ridden in certain areas, you have to be of a certain age, which you have to be 18 supposedly on this to begin with, and the right-of-ways and where they can be left, or where they can be ridden. I don't know whether we kind of maybe consider implementing these motorized scooters as, under the same section of our codified ordinances as the motorized bicycles. I don't think they qualify quite under a motorcycle, because it's not that type of vehicle, but I'm, don't know which route to go with it, or where we would, how we would go about regulating it without, because enforcement would be what would be the issue. If these are sitting out for X amount of time, do we want to put a time frame? How do we know that they've been sitting there that long? How do we know when to pick them up if we would put that in there? Have they been used within X amount of time? Personally, I don't know that in some of the sidewalks, and that I don't know that they should be parked on a sidewalk at all, but that's where I saw them today on, the sidewalk, in front of UDF, their corporate office. So I'm concerned a little bit with that, but people riding them, unless, the officers are out and about and they actually see them, that's the only way they're going to be able to ticket them. Same way with speeders, you have to catch them in the act in order to do something. But with these things here, they're gone and around in such a short period of time, unless they actually confront, an officer. They're going to just pretty well do what they want to do. And most of the people, I understand, it's a new thing and it's a way to get from one place to another. However, most of the people that are using them aren't going to be like you and I. It's mostly the folks at Xavier, and not saying that they are all of them, but for the most part, I don't think they could care one iota where they leave them, where they drop them, where they pick them up, or how they ride them. And we see that, through examples of, some of the housing that they live in and how they maintain themselves in the neighborhoods with that. So whether they have rules and regulations that they sign off on before they're allowed to even take one, I don't think they give two hoots about it. The company who's giving them the authorization, they're making their money on it, and shame on you. But I'm not sure, without having something in the under one of the ordinances, either under like added to the bicycle or motorized bicycle, where we have some way to enforce it. At this point, I don't know that they're covered under anything except possibly assisted mobility devices, but not sure. So I don't.
Some of the ordinances I've seen state they can park them on the sidewalk if the sidewalk is 8 feet wide, or some are 6 feet wide, and you can't park them in the walking path. And Cincinnati has also put that in theirs, but Cincinnati also has that they can park them in the devil strip. Now I look at the devil strip as, hey, I'm required to maintain that. I don't want to come out of my house and find 5 scooters there if I have to mow the grass. So that was one of the things in theirs that I didn't like where they parked. They're not supposed to be in the sidewalk. They're not supposed to be parked on the sidewalk. They are, if there is cement between the sidewalk and the curb, they're able to park them there. But right on our sidewalk, no, and that's where I'm finding the bicycles mostly. The problem with seeing the bicycles, even if they're only there for an hour, is wheelchairs, people with strollers, people with problems walking. It's a nuisance, and it's become a nuisance real quick. I will say that when the gentleman from Berg called me back today, he did state they were going to pool all they call them nests. That's where they store them, or where they drop them off in the morning. They're going to pull them out of Norwood until they sit down and talk to us and we can get this all worked out. However, in the meantime, they'll put them right up at Xavier and the kids will bring them here anyway. And there's nothing you can do about that. And I thought, oh, shopping carts, let me just say that. I did talk to Keith about it, and I mentioned this to the mayor. Just exactly what we did with the shopping carts. That worked, apparently. That made a big difference. You know, pick these things up, take them down to Public Works. Hey, you can pick your bike up on Thursday morning between 6 and 8, and we're gonna charge you $100. I mean, we have to pay for our time for our guys to go get them.
Yeah, sure.
100, you know, one place was charging 200. You know, that might be,
Now you switch to shopping carts now. That what we're
They
talking
were
about
just
now?
saying that,
yeah.
Okay.
that implementing something, a similar procedure.
Similar
that we-
procedure.
That they did with the shopping cart.
Okay.
Here, I've
Oh,
got
I
the-
see. Okay.
Here, I've got the shopping cart ordinances here, and there's 4 of them, I believe, in there. How to pick them up, how to dispose of them, how to, when we can have them here. And they're
Thank you.
considered abandoned if they're sitting out.
Okay.
You know, and I had an email from someone who said, wait a minute, if I can't leave something sitting on my sidewalk. Why are they able to do this? Well, it's absolutely right. I can't go put, leave something on I can't put a chair on my sidewalk and leave it there.
Sure. Yeah, I have some thoughts.
Same with your garbage cans.
I have a few thoughts.
Let's-
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I see both sides of this. So, just play devil's advocate for just a minute. You called it the adult urban mobility conversation that we're gonna have, right? So, let's just say that it ain't for guys like us. You know, we're like the generation that's going out, right? And the new generation are coming in here. They're the ones that are taking advantage of this, and they're the ones that got the apps and looking for them. So, and I guess it's up to us now what we do and how we regulate. Do we allow? Do we regulate, or do we ban? What do we do? I see this as something that we can't really stop. This is going to happen, I think. So regulate. You know, we have to figure out how we deal with it with Norwood. So. I don't think they're designed for the sidewalks. I think these scooters are designed to drive on the street. So
That's one of the rules.
safety's an issue. I saw in your paperwork, you know, if somebody gets hurt, are they going to call the city? Are they going to call Joe Gears, or are they going to call the Bird? We're talking about Bird.
Yeah. Or line.
If I, like, and to your point, Mr. Sanker, if I had a bunch of something I wanted to market, and I just threw them all over the city for people to charge people to do it, we'd have a problem with that. As far as a storefront, I like that. That's a storefront. So it definitely we need to talk about how we regulate this, exactly how you do it, I think. But I think this is happening. This is going to happen. I mean, this is something that the next generation is going to use, especially here in Norwood. We're 2 miles and 2 something miles wide, you know. The young guy that's got the suit and tie on, it's a lot of traffic out there. He wants to jump on this scooter and he can get to the other side of Norwood, no sweating, you know, nice cool breeze. I get it. So I can see both sides of this, but I also see the need to regulate. And if you're going to have a business, it's going to have to be regulated just like it would be if we wanted to buy a storefront. And so there's a lot to it. Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's going to go away, and even if you quote banned it,
Right.
people are still going to ride them through if they're coming from one, like you said, one end of town to another, whatever, cutting through. They're still going to, be riding them through. So
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't that we can actually quote ban them. You could possibly, ban them, dropping them off, but I don't know how you're going to ban you or I from riding it, stopping and leaving it wherever, you get to your destination. I don't, because we don't know who that is or how to. So I think as far as regulating, you hate, quote, regulating everything. However, I mean, we have regulations for bicycles, motorized bicycles, electric personal assistant vehicles, motorcycles. We just don't have anything specific to scooters in here at this point in time. But so I would think that if we, I don't like the idea that they can be dropped off in front of anyone's house at any particular time. Like if you rode home, I don't want it in front of my house. You park it across the street and then walk across the street to your house, or something to that effect. I don't know that, as far as residents wise, that they appreciate them being parked, in front of their house. Maybe the businesses on Montgomery Road where I've seen them, maybe they don't mind because maybe it brings people there, go in, come out, head on their way or what have you. But I don't like the idea that they can just leave them anywhere within the city of Norwood and on any sidewalk wherever they want. Now, we can have, setbacks and that for how wide the sidewalk has to be, but you and I know that the people that are driving or riding these, they don't know what any of those are. So I mean, they'll ride it, get off of it, and go about their business. And so it's either a matter where the bird or the limes that they have to see that thing's been sitting for an hour. We better get that moved, otherwise we're going to get it picked up. Not sure if that would be one way of doing it, and I don't know how long something sits. Like if somebody drives one down to Elm Avenue and gets off of it, leaves it there, how long will it sit there before somebody else on Elm Avenue comes up? Oh, I might take that. They don't, I'm sure they can go to the app and find where it is, but there might be certain places around town where odds of somebody picking that same scooter up and driving it somewhere else are probably slim to none. So how long do you let something sit before, you either pick it up and take it away, or how long do they let it sit before they pick them up and take them away? You're not supposed to put your garbage cans out, until 6 o'clock the night before, and then they have to be taken back in the next day. Well, if you have to do that with garbage cans in front of your own house, how can somebody park a scooter in front of your house just willy-nilly and not worry about it getting picked up? I think that's what we're got to try to figure out, how, if there is a way to either keep them picked up on a regular basis within a certain amount of time, which I don't know if that can happen, and put back to where their drop-off spots are, so they're not littered all over. And how long can they stay out littering before they're moved or taken away? I don't know how we. I think that those are, some of the bigger things. I don't think they're, like you said, they're not going to go away. People are going to continue to use them, but how do we keep the right-of-way and have some type of rules and regulations on the books, for these things, as we do with any other, bike, motorbike, things of that nature. I'm not sure where we would, pick that up. The other thing also, any other businesses that that operate within the city of Norwood, they pay their earnings tax for their employees, which in this case here, we don't know if they're people that are servicing these or picking them up, if they are employees of Bird or Green or Lime or whatever it is, and whether they reside within the city, and if so, do they file a tax return or a W whatever, to show that they were employed and they made X amount of money working for this particular company? Or would this Bird, would they send them a W-2 at the end of the year saying they work for our company, and, have them, pay that? And as well, other corporations and companies that reside here, they pay their, profit taxes and that as well. Rather, how do we know whether this place is if they're operating a business within the city, how would we collect, as we do from any other business operating within the city, those fees as well? It's somewhat not fair that they can come in and basically operate a business, as I said before, not to, using our sidewalks as their storefront, where everybody else is paying their earnings tax, paying their business taxes, and, on a quarterly basis, where these people, they're basically kind of getting away scot-free without, any obligation to the cities that they're operating in. So I think that something, how do we do that? Or how do we, if they come in and sit down and talk, how do we approach them with the thing? Hey, listen, man, you're operating here, you're not paying us a nickel, as far as, so I don't know how we would, what type of fees, and how we would collect them, or how we would even know.
I spoke with Mr. Maloney yesterday about this, and he said it would be a nightmare to calculate and figure what would be owed. And he thought that possibly, or he mentioned just a franchise fee and a per day fee. He just said it would be impossible to track down how much they use, because they come inside of Norwood, they go out.
And I was playing around on their website, and anyone can sign up to be one of the chargers of the bikes. So I mean, if you live close to one of the drop-off places, you could do that. And sometimes people get bored with stuff. So how much did they actually make doing that? And then switch out people all the time. And so I agree, that would probably be a nightmare trying to track all of that. But I too agree. I think this is like multi-layered as far as safety, regulating the business. You had mentioned nests, so they do have specific locations where these are dropped?
Yes.
Okay.
Every morning.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Thank you, Madam Chair. It did say in their paperwork that they pick them up every night. They pick them up every night, and then they drop them to their nesting wherever they nest. So, and to another point that you made, since the conversation started, I've been noticing, and I am chairman of Ward 4, so I have been noticing them past Sherman Avenue and into 4, and just because I've been paying attention since we started discussing it. So they are past Sherman, and I do know that they don't pick every one of them up every night. I can tell you that because I've seen them sit there for a few days. So they don't pick them up every night. Maybe, they missed one maybe. So, but I do know that it doesn't happen every day. I've seen them sit overnight and then some. So definitely regulating some sort of, like you said, they don't allow us to leave our garbage cans out past 5 o'clock. So if one's sitting there for a week, we definitely have to address that. So, but I also see a need, again, like you said, I don't see these going away. I see a low-income family that can't afford a vehicle can use this. What is it, $1 for the app, and then 15 cents a mile. I think that's what I read. So, someone that can't afford to have a vehicle, they might utilize something like that. And I understand, I can see that. Like I said, especially in this town when we're 2 miles, we're generally a small community, and if you can get on one of them for 30 cents and go across town, essentially, once you've paid your $1. So those are my thoughts. maybe we can cap, obviously, we want to cap the number of, we don't want them all over the place. We definitely need to cap it, how many the cap is, I have no idea, but we definitely need the cap somehow, right?
Yeah, but when you think about it, if their nest or whatever they call where they drop them.
Yes, sir.
Say they drop, I don't know how many they drop. Say they drop 20 off at, 3 nest locations or 4 nest locations, but that are in here. But the folks that, pick one up down over off of Dana or somewhere else, they drive them in and leave them. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios, but
Yeah,
so
sure.
you might start off with 20, but there might, at the end of the day, there might be 25 left around town.
Yes.
But as you're saying, if they supposed to pick them up every night and put them back to that nest, and we'd still every day would start with that same base amount,
That would
20
be
or
30
whatever.
of them.
Yes, sir.
They have 10 nests.
Is that what they had?
10 nest
They had
at
10
3
nests,
per
3
nest?
yes.
Okay.
So I guess UDF must be a nest up there, because there's always 3 when I go by.
And on the corner of Ivanhoe and Montgomery at the old firehouse.
I didn't see any there today.
And then I believe they offer safety equipment too. I think you can get a helmet. I don't know about anything else, but I did read something where they will provide a helmet if you request that. I'm not sure about a charge on that, but
No, I think they're giving them away as free.
Okay.
And I think they would like cities to have little events where they give them away.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I see the need to regulate, but I also see where this is going, and I can see it being somewhat of a younger thing, and I think
Hey,
they're
if I was young, I was gonna get one on today. I was gonna get one today, say, hey, I had to try this out, and I thought, I don't wanna be the first person to fall in the middle of the street in Norwood and have to call an ambulance.
That's a
'cause that
big
would
thing.
happen.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought about getting one too, but like you said, I remember riding a manual scooter, and they're not the easiest thing. you hit something with that front wheel, and you're gonna go down. So that's a safety thing, yeah.
I just want to say I absolutely agree with you. I think they're here. I think the big problem is that they dropped them on us.
Yeah.
And they do this in all the cities because it takes too long to come to the cities in advance. I was even told this.
Sure.
If I come to the city and say, let's work this out, it's going to take 6 months, and they don't want to do that.
Too much
so they
red
drop
tape.
them off, and we're stuck with, rushing to get this stuff done. And I agree they're here, and I think they're kind of neat, but I don't want to see any kids get killed, and I don't want to have a car, If Cincinnati were to ban them, we would have a much easier time. Now, Cincinnati's not real happy with them, so I don't know where they're going to go. Banning has been talked about. Who knows? But you're right, I don't think we can ban them. And then have, if Cincinnati's not going to, and I don't even know if we want to. But if you look at the map where the scooters are, we are definitely a central location for these scooters because of Xavier.
Well, we should be in the
And we
discussion
were
then,
target,
as far
yeah.
as regulating.
And they should be here, and which they're willing to come, but they should have been here long before this ever happened, as we all know.
I got to tell you, I'm a little jealous. It's a genius marketing scheme. I mean, they just place their bikes everywhere, and we're talking about them. So
Well,
it's
and then-
pretty. I've been working my butt off for 20 years trying to, put my name out there, and these guys just show. I mean, it's genius, really.
Right. Well, and then we have the issue of the Lime bikes, and if I'm not, and I may be wrong here, because I haven't been able to do a whole lot with them. I believe Xavier actually brought them in. So if Xavier brought them in and they're on Xavier's property, I think Xavier ought to be involved in some of this at this point. I mean, if that's the case. And I haven't been able to research a whole lot on those.
Yeah, I'd like to
Does
go
this
over
came
this a
up
little
quick?
more. This is Cincinnati's.
Yes.
You handed out a Cincinnati
But
ordinance.
they're working on it all the time, and they're planning on making several changes. I know
Sure.
a couple councilmen do want them banned.
I did not have a chance to go through this. I'd be
No,
interested.
I know, I have a whole lot more here too. I've just been reading and trying to figure out what other places are doing.
Well, we're not going to.
Everybody's doing something different.
I commend you for starting the conversation. So we'll figure it out from here.
Yeah, snow days. These are coming out of California, they don't have snow. What are they gonna do on snow days? Are we still, are these gonna be lying under the snow somewhere?
Put chains on them.
Yeah, and data sharing, I think we ought to be given information about accidents. breakdowns, whatever. When you read the stories, or, the paper I gave you, and they were talking about the accidents that have happened because of malfunctions with these scooters, I think if we're gonna come into an agreement with them, that's real important to get that data. And what I have here where it says bird background, I think it's your third page in, that came from the representative from Bird Scooters today, the one that says bird background.
Okay, okay.
So that's directly from them.
Yeah,
Talk about over here.
I think it would be really interesting to hear from them, like their maintenance plan, because in this article you provided us, I mean, like you said, they're talking about malfunctions and brake sticking and things like that, and just I'd be curious to know like how often they actually service, the scooters, because it could be dangerous. I'm not very coordinated, so it's probably not something I would ever do, but I'd want to make sure it was working properly.
I'm surprised.
I mean, if you go pick one up,
Let's bring 3 up here next time and try them all.
you're certified that it was checked out the night before or whatever, and yes, this is checked by,
Right.
so-and-so, so you get on it, but it wasn't checked out, and you wind up, like you said.
Over the handlebars, 15
Right.
miles an hour.
Right.
I'm just surprised with all the climate change, there's no snow in California yet. Sorry. Sorry, on the lighter note.
On their, they say that, that they're dropped off of the nests by 7 a.m. and the pickup process begins at sunset. And then each night, the birds are picked up for storage, charging, and necessary repairs. But it begins at sunset, but it doesn't say that, it might not end. If you got one person picking up 30 scooters, they may not be able to get to them all. So they might sit for hours. So I guess one thing to kind of consider is, okay, after hours, if they're not picked up, after sunset, they're still laying on the street the next morning. Is that then, being they didn't pick them up as scheduled, would that be something we would consider, well, let's pick that one up, take it down Public Works, and hold it for ransom? But I don't know. That's their plan, and I'm sure in most cases it probably works. And I'm sure there's going to be, like you mentioned, occasion where they're not picked up. But that's what they state is, that it starts at sunset, but it doesn't say how long it's going to take or guarantee when they're going to be off the street. But then how, like you say, if how do you know if they were checked out? If you got 30 of them that you picked up, how are you going to go through 30 of them from tonight, at the end of the night tonight, and have them all ready to go by 7 o'clock the next morning?
You'd have to have 30 more in the back of the truck so you could just switch them out.
Yeah, somehow.
Switch them out.
I don't.
You got these already done, pick these up and set these out, and then work on these tomorrow.
So,
And are they qualified people working on it?
That's what if it's just
And I
residents,
also,
Yeah.
grabbing them, are they qualified to even check out the maintenance of the scooters?
I got an interesting point here, called it the adult urban mobility conversation, right? And one of the rules here, I'm just reading there where you were, Mr. Sanker, requiring riders to upload a driver's license to confirm that they are older than 18. So
yeah.
am I to believe that these are adults? Children aren't to be driving these?
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, we're talking about adults here.
Yes, we are.
When you talk about a scooter,
Yeah.
what comes to mind? You talk, yeah. Sure. That was interesting.
I am of the opinion, and I might be a little mean on this, if they're laying across the sidewalk and somebody can't, somebody in a wheelchair can't get past them, or somebody with a baby stroller, I'm okay in the daytime having Public Works pick them up and taking them down.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what it is for bicycles and motorized bicycles. I mean, that's what,
What's the rule for regular bicycles, where you put them? Well, these aren't bicycles, they're motorized scooters, so it just
So
doesn't matter.
when they're not active, are the wheels locked?
No, I did get out and move one to see if I can move it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
It's just
could
not
roll it.
motorized.
Right, I could roll
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And I think the way,
It's an interesting topic that we're going to have.
well, and I think to prevent that on Bird's End is they will know who the last operator of the scooter was. So, you know, they're gonna know who was responsible for putting it on the sidewalk.
And that goes to, that's something else that came to mind. You said that it would be a nightmare to, say, like, I can't remember how you put it, but as far as our treasurer said it would be a nightmare to kind of organize that. But it seems to me that a simple app would be able to regulate that for us.
Well, we don't know if they're, if they're picking it up in Cincinnati and driving to Norwood.
Well, with GPS though, I
How do you
I
figure
would
that?
say that with the Jeep, because that's where they locate them. So if it drives out of Norwood, I think that's going to, the right app should know. I mean, to me, it seems, I'm not a tech person, but somebody that should be able to regulate that, probably pretty easy. But what do I know? I don't know. I'm not a computer guy, so.
You could probably initiate where the ride started and have it. But I mean, if it does, I think the issue would get in, if it crosses city limits.
Sure. I don't want to, by any means, I don't want to, if Mr. Maloney said it would be a nightmare, then I trust his judgment and what he said. So I don't, but with apps, like they have an app where they all are, who the last one used it, probably how far they went. I mean, you can put it on your wrist. So how far they went. So it seems to me that it would be very simple to regulate that if we had some sort of the right computer-generated
But-
app. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, and I think for on Bird's End, if we put it in, to our regulations that one's left on the sidewalk will be taken to Public Works and charged a fine, I think they could put something in on their app, when you check a box that says you're not going to leave it on the sidewalk, and then they have recourse to go back to the user
yeah.
and charge them some sort of fine.
They're supposed to take a picture of the bike when they drop it off.
Oh, okay.
Supposed to, but that doesn't mean they're gonna do it.
Well,
Yeah.
what
So-
comes to mind is I've been self-employed, and I'm not going to use my, I have an app that tells me exactly how many miles I drive for tax purposes. So I don't have to keep track of every single day. I don't have to write down, I went 15 miles today. There's an app that tells me that I went this far. And at the end of the year, I could say, well, I drove 100,000 miles. And so it just seems to me like it'd be something simple like that.
I mean,
Anyway,
I think it'd have to be something they provided us, though.
Okay.
I'd be willing to do that.
understood.
Parking of a bicycle, 373.09A. No person shall park a bicycle upon a sidewalk in such a manner so as to unduly interfere with the pedestrian traffic or upon a roadway so as to unduly interfere with vehicular traffic. Now, whoever violates it, guilty of a minor misdemeanor, and just states what the fines are.
But if this is a rental, then is it the person who was riding it and walked off because they can leave them, or is it the company? Who,
It would have to be the company.
so,
Well, that's what I'm
you're the
saying.
owner.
Right. I don't think unless we physically witnessed the person leaving it there, we would know who left it on the sidewalk. So I think it would be a fine assessed to the company, and then they could then, like if they put in their regulations that you cannot leave this scooter on the sidewalk or we will fine you, and they would just pass the fine off to the user. I don't even know if that's just an idea.
You were saying the thing is too, is if they're not locked, and you, out of curiosity, said, hey, wonder how these things actually work, or if I could, balance on one or whatever, you get on it, turn it around and set it in the sidewalk, and then say, well, it's
Well,
pretty
that's
cool,
true.
maybe I might try it.
That's true.
I don't know. Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
just,
it'd be hard to
If
regulate.
they require a
Yeah, understood.
picture,
But
at least you have that recourse to say, I did my due diligence and left it.
So I came by, knocked it over, not my fault.
Right.
So, as a committee, where do you see us with this as a committee as far as?
Well, my thought is that at some point in time, we're going to have to cover these things under some section in, whether it's under the bicycle or motorized bicycle or whatever it is. I don't know that we need we do our own section specifically for scooters, because I would think when you read through at 373 under bicycles, it kind of, most all the regulations for those would seem to apply if you added and scooters or something to that, or motorized scooters or something. But I think we just need to keep asking questions, or possibly even, if we get the people here, but some of the issues. I mean, how do we report, people riding on the sidewalks? I mean, if somebody calls the police, by the time they get there, the person's already parked it and gone, and, well, I wasn't riding on the sidewalk. Same way, blocking the sidewalks. How do we remove them, or at what point do we remove them? Do we remove them if they're blocking the sidewalk, pick them up, take them away, or if they've been there for overnight, or after dark, but then again, who's going to pick them up then? So what parameters would we put in place, or, to remove them and then contact the owners? On private property, I would say we would, if the owner of the property said, hey, I got one of these scooters sitting on my lawn here, what do I do with it? I would say that would be fair game to pick up at any time. But whether we would have to figure out, is that what we want to do? And not following the traffic laws, I mean, how are we going to report that too? I mean, if we report it, again, like I said, to the police, if they're not around to see it, unless, and when we get an accumulation of X amount of reports on this, we go to Byrd and say, hey man, we're getting multiple calls about people violating or being reckless with these things here. This continues, we may have to, sever our relationship. I don't know whether we come to that or not, but because it doesn't sound to me like they are that concerned with how people are actually operating them. Once they get them checked in and they start putting them on the ticker, I don't know that they really are too concerned how they are operating them. But if they're hindering traffic flow, eventually they're going to be seen, and I think that will handle itself. But so I don't know, but I think those are the issues that you have stated here already. I think the questions are going to be, how do we report them? How do we remove them? What parameters surrounding removal or do we, utilize? And like you said, do we, if there is a fee or a franchise fee or something, because there should be a cost of doing business here if they are doing business. Every other, company that's here in the city of Norwood, such as your own, are required to, pay either the franchise fee or whatever it is, or their earnings tax. But I just think that they're getting a free pass when it comes to that, and I don't think that, they're getting a free pass. What about all the other businesses in town? So I think that we need to come up with an answer on that. These are things we need to think about and discuss with folks that say, hey, well, here's an idea. I don't know that we're going to be able to have a foolproof plan, but with nothing in place, it's just going to continue to operate as usual. But I do think those are, my opinion, some of the questions that we need to address and come up with at least some temporary solutions to, as well as if we, whether we want to have them regulated at some point under, because right now, I guess you could cite somebody under the assistive mobility device, possibly if somebody ran into somebody. But this thing here, you can operate these things under the age of 18, as far as on this. But anyway. So I think there's more to follow, to be honest with you. So,
Well, just to note how much these are used, I was told that if the scooters sit longer than 2 hours, they start removing them from Norwood and bringing less in. They also, they drop these scooters off, no notice, and here we are, the third weekend, but they recoup all their costs on these scooters in 1 to 2 weeks of usage. So it is quite a business.
Yeah. It's real interesting. We're watching, to me it's fascinating because it started out with, what do they call it, a bike, a city bike? So where you had to go from one dock to another dock. And that was pretty cool, it was innovative. And now so that's going to have to be in our wording if we are going to regulate these. These are dockless. They just drop them anywhere. It's just, to me, it's fascinating. We're watching the evolution of technology. It's fascinating. So just drop them anywhere. Just set them down. We'll take care of it later. What's next? What's next? And there's going to be something next. So we need to think about that as we're having this discussion, because there's something else coming that's going to because of this. So it's fascinating.
And you want to think of the next thing first. You sure do.
You got that right. You got that right.
Well, I guess, should we just at this point wait until they sit down and have them sit down with Mr. Moore and Mr. Gary and go through?
I think
Yeah.
we can get them in here.
They're willing.
And somebody be present at the same time to express, like, some of the things we've discussed with them.
I'll go. Anybody?
So as far as reporting to council, we're just concerned for the public safety and
We're not going to be able to really report it out,
Yeah.
but
Just
we can
start the
report today.
discussion.
But there's another 100 questions to be answered.
Yes.
As far as it's not just cut and dry, because if
absolutely.
it was one location, one dock or one mess, that's one thing. You could, but when there's multiple ones and multiple scooters, I don't know.
Well, should I have Mr. Moore and Mr. Gary look into adding these scooters to the ordinances for like the shopping carts? With the shopping carts?
As far as being, on the public right of way, or
Yeah, as far as them being a nuisance when they're out on the sidewalk.
I would think we could look at least give some.
And I'm not just being parked where they're allowed. I'm talking about where they're knocked over on the, when the bike is sitting face down on the sidewalk and nobody can get past it.
Yeah, I mean, like when they're dropped off and they're all three lined up on a wide enough sidewalk
That's
where they're not hindering. I mean, because if you walked where the ones up on Montgomery Road where if you walked into those, you'd have walked into a tree first, and then after you walked
Right.
into those, you'd walk into another tree. So it's like they're not, they're up
Obstructing
against
anything.
the,
And they put them in front of Williams Avenue School and they're fine.
I didn't see them there.
Yeah.
I'm torn. I'm not gonna lie. I would hesitate to, I mean, until we know more, I mean, you say they're putting in, they're in people's way, so you wanna figure out a way to keep that from happening without, I don't know. I just hesitate to have a negative thought.
I think we have to be a little progressive on it to have something ready to go once we get the details.
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe not be something that, but I don't know that
Yes.
if we put the bug in their ear at the law department now and say, hey, can we apply the same rules and regulations as we do to grocery carts? If we decide to do this down the road, can we have something drawn up? Yep, and have it ready if that's the way we want to go. But if all of a sudden we hear from Bird and they come in, they say, hell, you'll never have a problem like that, we'll make sure that never, ever happens. Well, then maybe we don't have to really implement something.
We probably need some sort of dockless some sort of on the books for dockless. I don't think grocery carts, I don't think we're talking about the same thing here. I think these are dockless scooters, for transportation. We probably need to have something separate. If that's just
Well,
my thought on that, but
And it
you
may
could be correct.
And that's why maybe somewhere they would say, we can apply the same,
Principles or wording.
for picking them up, but have it under the motorized bicycle or if you have it under bicycles and motorized scooters, add that into part of it. And then part of one of the subsections would be XYZ of these being left in right away for X amount of time.
Yes.
Would be
Yes.
subject to something to that effect, where wouldn't necessarily
Perfect.
be in the grocery cart ordinance, but with the same, basic background of that possibly. But better for them to start thinking about it now than, we come at the last minute and say to them, hey, we want you to draw something up.
They kill me. I've done it before.
I know, but I'm just saying,
I think my attitude is welcoming these companies, but with a mindful thought of safety for our sidewalks and residents. Sure, absolutely.
And, I know that the shopping carts worked. The ordinance worked, and they've got these. There's 3 or 4 of them here. I think I handed them to you.
Yes,
And
yes.
they're good and they worked. But yeah,
Sure.
I have no
If that-
problem with what you're saying. But I do want to be prepared because people are already getting injured. People, they're having cars damaged. They're having damage from them. People are getting
Yeah.
injured, and I don't want to be in a position where we have some kid getting seriously hurt.
Yes. I'm with you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, I will speak with Mr. Moore and Mr. Gary, and I'll let everyone know when they're going to meet, and whoever wants to join them, I'm sure can. And
Okay.
they are willing to come to council also, but I think until we sit down with them and the law department sits down with them, then that'll save time for when they come to council.
do they have a local franchise or whatever here in town that they,
I think they have, the guy is like the district manager from Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky.
Okay.
Right now, he's in LA. He's gonna be in Memphis tomorrow, and he said he could be here Thursday if we needed him. So no, I don't think he lives. They don't even offer phone numbers. You have to really search and email them, and they did respond quickly. Okay,
the deal?
thank you very much, and I guess we close this meeting.